All right, good. Consistent with chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and to participate when necessary. All motions and votes of the Affordable Housing Trust at this and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. With that, we'll call the meeting to order, and I am Mike Lester, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. Deanna?
I'm here.
You're supposed to
like
introduce yourself and
Would
then.
you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Deanna Fay. I wasn't sure if I was muted. I'm Deanna Fay on the Affordable Housing Trust.
Joe?
Joe Bertolino of the Affordable Housing Trust.
MJ?
MJ Boylan, member of the trust.
Ruth?
Ruth Pino, member of the trust.
Heather?
Heather Daigle, member of the trust.
David?
David Fields, Community Development Director.
Greg?
Greg Cadamatore, Planning Director.
All right, thank you, everyone. It's now that we have the strategic plan behind us, I'm excited to have a pretty full agenda for tonight. And I was hoping, hopefully Chris will log in because I know he had an item he wanted to talk about. So hopefully he will be on. I didn't see that he wouldn't be on, but why don't we start off with the exciting news that I shared with everyone last week about 100 Gloucester Avenue. This was shared probably early March with us. Terrific opportunity to create housing. And you can see that I circulated not an RFP, but an RFI just to see what the interest is out there. So I'll start the conversation off by asking Greg and David if they knew of any response to the RFI, and if the site visit was well attended on March 9th.
Sure, I can answer that, Greg, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So the RFI is open through the end of the month, so it won't close till the 31st. So we don't have any official responses yet, but I do know, and they were at the site visit, Harbor Light Community Partners was there, as well as Habitat for Humanity. So they both sent representatives for the site visit, as well as the question session. So there are a number of questions that they brought up, mostly related to utilities, where utilities were, how do they get to the site. Other than that, there wasn't really any in-depth questions about the site. It's a 2.4 acre site with significant road frontage.
Yep.
Yep, go ahead.
No, I was just confirming.
Sure. And I think so far we've sort of tried to position it, at least through the RFI process, as something that would fit in with the neighborhood, a similar characteristic and style to the houses that are already there. But that was the reason for the request for interest, as opposed to a straight RFP, and that we don't know that it's viable for somebody to build that typology. So we'll see what we get back. Again, it's open till the end of the month, but an exciting opportunity for sure. Greg, I don't know if you have anything
It is an exciting opportunity, and we're all looking forward to, this is where the advocacy part and outreach part of our plan comes into play as well. And I just was interested to know if anyone else had any comments or questions about it.
Go ahead.
Ruth?
No. Just going to say it was a beginning.
Yeah.
No,
Chris?
I just found out after the site visit that the site visit was going on. I would have liked to just have been there. That's all.
Yeah.
It's good to know ahead of time in case there's any other questions that internally they might have that I might be able to help answer. But just I found out after the site visit that this was coming to light.
Is it possible to set up a site visit for
trust members?
I think it's something you could just drive by. I think it's pretty simple.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing would be to just drive by. It's not, it's pretty accessible. It's not a site deep in the woods or something like that, so.
Okay,
Yeah, it's right off of Gloucester Avenue, and I'm pretty sure that water and sewer goes right by the site.
They're close. They're
it's
close.
not like it.
Dave, I had a question for you. I think I might have looked at that a long time ago for private reasons. Is the back title is that part of the, included in part of the deed that was dedicated for the water, the Cape Pond Ice, not Cape Pond, the reservoir? Was that part of the dedication for the reservoir before? And is there any things in the title that might be a hiccup? Have they checked the title on it? I know it's
Greg, I'm
public
not su-
property, but I'm just wondering if it, just don't want to find out later on if there was any sort of title issue with regards to what it could be used for.
I mean,
I don't believe there is. It was part of the original Babson deed before it was bisected by the 128 extension. So there certainly is some process for the development as residential, but it's not something that's insurmountable.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, that's
I
good
just
news.
knew there was something out there.
Is it possible to extend the open timeframe
Thanks, Chris.
if needed, if there's no responses in a month?
We could always go back out, but I think that the volume of people that pulled the bid, I think it was at least a dozen.
Oh, good.
If we don't hear anything back, I think that's a pretty good indicator of the interest.
Excellent, great. That's 12 people pulling that's great.
Any other comments or questions, other than we'll look forward to hearing more about it as the months go on. I thought it was exciting news to share with everybody, and we'll keep our ears and eyes open for sure. But feel free to drive by, check it out, Deanna,
Well,
and anyone else? Anything else on this?
I would just only add that it would be great to incentivize, this project. Hopefully it's something that's going to be all affordable and not just, a portion. That would be my goal anyways.
I thought that was made clear in the RFI.
We did state a minimum threshold in there. I think I said 50% affordable at roughly 60% AMI. But if somebody wants to go over and beyond that, that's wonderful. I know Habitat specifically said if they did it, they'd be looking to do 100% affordable. So
And these were just to confirm, because I think the RFI said it, but these are for sale units.
yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Permit, development, and sale by whoever
Buys it.
ultimately buys and proposes, then buys.
So is
I
rental
would
off
think-
the table?
I'm sorry?
Is rental off the table as an option if somebody came back and, like a Harbor Light, for example, came back and wanted to do rental units?
I think at that point, we probably have to revisit that. I know the initial interest was for sale, which is more difficult to as a product type.
Okay.
So, okay. Good stuff. Next up. Heather and I believe Ruth, contacted by local attorney regarding a project on 116 East Main Street with a request for the Affordable Housing Trust to basically looking for a statement of the trust to support a how do I want to put it? I think they want to restructure their
They want to modify the special.
they want to modify the special permit where they were gonna, they have to develop one unit on site. They'd like to modify it for a payment in lieu. And I know he was originally gonna send it to the council early March, but delayed that submission until we could get it on our agenda to discuss it. So basically, Joel Favazza is representing Valerina Gloucester LLC. I know did you guys all have a chance to read this? They are developing the project on East Main Street. There's 8 units going in over there. One of them was required under inclusionary housing requirements that it would need to be restricted affordable. And now he's going to petition that they modify the permit to be approximately $420,000 for a payment in lieu. And he actually outlined a few items. And on item number 3, I thought it was interesting that his group would also be willing to spearhead the replacement project that could be funded by the payment in lieu. So with that, does anyone have any comments?
I'm usually not in favor of payments in lieu because they don't, reflect the value. I mean, the amount it takes to replace that housing, the amount stated, that's a talkable figure. I don't know about the willing to spearhead the other project, though. That sounds kind of pie in the sky. What do people think? I mean, why should we support this idea?
Chris?
Did he provide numbers, the difference between the two numbers? And he, by looking at what he's asking for, I'd like to see the numbers spelled out a little bit more. Because if you go by what I read, which is to have the amount is derived, at least under the way it's written now, is it's derived from when the project was applied for. And it was applied for in 2019 or 20, and there were wholly different numbers back then. I'd like to, I'm sure because of the value of what would be called qualified properties, it'd be better if they were able to run the numbers and give a comparison as to what they'd be putting forward and what, sort of do what the market there. I believe they're trying to market those for 950, I think. If that's
980, it's way up there. It's in the high nines,
Okay.
I think.
So just,
Yeah.
I would, in order to support it, I wouldn't want to say, that it's, you're giving, I wouldn't want to say we're giving them a gift after it's already been approved. I mean, if it's, obviously if something is coming through today, it would be something that would encourage it and it would, encourage it, but it's something that had all different circumstances. And I'd want to just see more numbers before I could say, yeah, I think that's a good deal. It's equal. I think that them trying to spearhead something, they could, that's like, that definitely could be something that we don't want. That's our job to work, to be able to magnify the money that would come in.
Yeah.
So I think we don't need them doing that because they could continue to say that they're going to spearhead the one after that and take the money there. So I think it'd be good to see the numbers straight out. And if it's, I think it's myself, I think it's better to bring it into the trust, but I just want to make sure that we're not, we're not really putting aside a great deal of money that we could otherwise, go into reducing a unit for someone to live in, I think, so.
Yeah, so I think to answer that, I think in order to apply or to petition to modify the permit, I would think it would have to meet the current standard as written under the inclusionary zoning in lieu requirements, which has to do with qualified housing unit sales, right?
Yes, per the existing, not something that might change in the future.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think he says in his email to us, as of August of last year. So it was more recent financial data that he was working off. As of August last year, that fee was calculated by the city's assessor's office to be $419,750. And he said, I imagine it's a similar figure today. So
No, it's
The-
right now, right now, the figure is 465 and change. That's 100% of the, I just wanted to do a little bit of
Yep.
reconnaissance. I went down the assessor's office and sort of, it's not a, it's a figure somewhere around there, and I think they have to, by standards with the Community Development Department, as of January 1st, come up with a figure, and I think it's somewhere, don't quote me on it, around 465, I believe. And Greg might know better than me, or Dave.
Yeah, I'd have to go check. I know Nancy is in the assessors department, has done that since the ordinance was amended with that formula. I don't know the exact figure, but I can get it. Again, I think what you really need to be thinking about as a trust, is how you want to develop programs and what your goals are around projects, rather than making any kind of commitment to expend funds that you haven't even received yet. And it's really up to the council and the operation of the current ordinance to decide whether the in lieu payment will be permitted.
Yeah.
I believe that's going to be filed. It may be filed even this Wednesday to start going through the council process.
No.
Yeah, and again, the attorney's simply asking us to support.
I
if
can't,
we will- If we'll support that. He's not-
personally, I can't support it right now. There isn't enough information.
Mr. Chairman,
Ruth?
I just like to bring up a point that this is the first time since the trust was created that we've had this opportunity. So I look at it in two different ways. One is that I think the trust can do more with that money and spread it out more than just having it used in one unit in a specific project. So the way I understood the request was that they're looking for input from the trust at the city council process to amend the special permit. And I'm in favor of accepting a payment in lieu of. How we determine the amount of money is a separate component of that. But I
That's
just,
not, yeah,
there's
that's
so
not
much
being
more.
asked right now.
Yeah.
Right,
Right now, the
exactly.
attorney's just
Understood.
asking us, yeah.
understood.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this might be an oversimplistic analysis, but sort of almost the flip of what Ruth said. If the amount that's in lieu of could actually provide a replacement unit, then I can't see why we would not be all right with that. Because in payments in lieu that we've seen before, or suggested payments in lieu, or even going back to the original one at West Village, would they have, well, maybe the West Village one could have built a unit at that time, but
Yeah.
can these funds replace a unit? And I think if the money we're talking about could do that, then it's certainly discussable.
I think I'm definitely in favor of in lieu payments, but I just think that this one is something that's going to be in front of the city council, and it's got a lot of other things that we don't know about with regards to how it was permitted. And I would want to just probably give a general, if it was me, I'd just give a general that we were in favor of having anything under 10 units, obviously be in lieu of payments. Most of us on this board, I think, feel that way. But I think that the city council or the courts made a decision the way it was. And I wouldn't want to ruffle feathers by just saying specifically this one, would like money. I think in general, we would like to have in lieu payments. We think we can magnify it, but I think that this one's, I don't think we get specific. I think in general, we just say that we would like to have, and then probably some would vote on that. Anything that comes through here, whether it's this or any other one, is that and we probably should vote on it, would be in favor of taking it in the payments, because we think that we can magnify that. Again, this one
I
has been
I think
voted
it's a
on.
good point, the way you state that, Chris,
Keep
that,
it general, not
General,
specific to this
yeah.
one. And because I don't want people to think that we're overstepping or putting more weight on this when it goes up to the city council. I
Right.
think we basically, as a group, should just say that we're in favor of in lieu payments under 10 units in general, and really that's it. We can't pick one and say that we're gonna, that we want this one to get it. We just want to give a general statement, and really, that's as far as I would go, but again, I don't think there's enough information. Pardon?
I think that's all they're looking for from us, is for us to say that. I don't think they're looking for us to buy step any city.
No, I just think that they want us specifically to mention this one that
Yeah.
that we're in favor of it. And I'm not prepared to do that. I don't think we should. There's not enough information to do that. I just think we speak in generalities, which is, as a group, I think we're more in favor of in lieu payments versus units.
Right.
Just because with a committee that we have, that we can magnify it and get more people housing. And it's just it's better as a trust that we are able to do that versus one unit per project scattered. I think that we could put it into 10 or 15 different projects and provide housing for more people with the smaller projects.
I would 100% agree with providing support in general, not support of a specific project, but in general, just a statement from the trust saying that we would always consider in lieu payments for certain size projects of less than 10 units, or prefer. I would
Yeah.
use the word prefer.
No, what, can we make this in the form of like a policy?
No, because I think that can change it with time. I think it's
Okay.
something that we just, I think that some of us obviously would rather have, well, maybe not, that we would rather have one unit on a project. I think Deanna, you mentioned in the past that you'd rather have the unit than maybe the in lieu of. So I don't want to set a policy, because it can change all the time.
Mhm.
I'd like to just sort of voice my feeling about this particular project specifically, is that, I feel like the developer really leveraged the number of units that they were planning to build there, because they were including an affordable unit.
Good point. You're
I don't
right.
think this
Yes.
project would have been as large as it is. It wouldn't have been 8 units. It probably would have been more like 6.
Mhm.
But they were promising the addition of an affordable unit. And at this late in the game, I mean, they're pretty well built out already. And at this point in the game, I would suspect that they should have already started the lottery process for that unit. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they have or not. So I would want to know that, because maybe they have applicants, maybe the process is already started. And I'm curious if all of the other units are already sold or under agreement at this point. It seems really late in the game for them to change this, and I feel like it's a real precedent setter, particularly where we are sort of
Yeah,
as a
again, you're
group
right.
talking about changing inclusionary zoning or proposing that there's consideration for inclusionary zoning to be payment in lieu instead of a build on site. But I feel like after the permitting process has been applied, to then ask for a change in this way
Yeah.
is too much of a precedent setting condition.
What- Or you leave it up to the city council, because they're the ones who have heard it and have the records and everything.
Right.
I think
But
that, again,
I
I
wouldn't-
think,
But they're
I think we
leaving,
give a
they're
general
leaving it up,
statement.
they're leaving it up to the city council anyway. We're
Yeah.
not making a decision. We're just issuing a statement. And the one thing I would say, Deanna, is that I think when we say that we would set precedent, do you think it's a little different in this case where they're not the group that permitted it? They bought the.
No, I
permit?
don't. I think they're looking for the Affordable Housing Trust as being support behind the decision. So if you can go there and say to the council that the Affordable Housing Trust supports this decision, that has some weight to it, and I don't
Yeah.
support it. So.
Yeah. I
I
wouldn't.
don't like the
support-
notion that this sort of feels like, as Deanna has pointed out, it feels a little bait and switchy,
Yeah,
But
that's
think
what
the
I-
number
that's
of
what I'm-
units.
That's
I
what
think
I'm
that we
asking.
just, I think we just give them the general statement that, you know, I think what you said, Mike, works. I think something along those lines that basically says would prefer, as a group, would prefer in lieu payments. And, but we cannot specifically say that we are in favor of any specific project. We just can't say that.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
so I think,
Can I just jump in for a second?
sure.
You're compelled to do nothing at this point.
Yeah,
You've
we
been,
can-
you've gotten a request from an applicant and you haven't gotten a request, like, for instance, from the city council. If they wanted to hear your opinion, I think that would be different. And with the different issues that have been raised on this one particular, that ultimately the decision rests with the council. And you can focus on when you receive funds, if that's what
Okay.
happens. And I think just as a general, you know, kind of policy, the way the ordinance is written right now, it's up to the applicant to decide. For in lieu payments between 6 and 9 units, they can decide if, you know, and obviously that probably relates to the type of product that they're producing, and what the delta is between the affordable in lieu payment or actually building. So I think the policy is in the ordinance right now. So there, I don't think you have to do, unless you want to, you know, modify that policy. I think, you know, what's been stated is, if somebody wants to build in a project and it makes sense, then they'll do so. If they choose to make an in lieu payment, that's where the trust makes the decision of what to do with funding.
I think the only thing that makes me think this is a little different, and maybe I'm being naive, I'm not sure, is that the current developer didn't permit it.
No, he bought it from someone who permitted it.
Right. I don't know if that matters.
That's me.
No, I mean, you could use a straw man, you know, I mean, the point, you know,
Yeah, but still, whoever buys a project, you've got to do their due diligence and find out all of the history, the minutes, everything. So they've got the whole court case when it went into the courts. I mean, they know all about it before they bought it, I assume.
and accept it under those terms. Yeah.
Can I ask Greg a question? So when an applicant is, when they apply for special permit, for example, like, what is their, like, do they get to decide at what point do they have to make their final decision on a payment in lieu versus a build on site? I would think that would be in the application process.
I would think that they would probably commit to that because they would understand what the financial
Right.
implication of that is.
Right.
So I wouldn't suspect that somebody would get to a point and say, oh, no, actually, we're going to do this. Again, the only nuance in this one is it was simply a requirement when they applied.
So,
So there wasn't really an opportunity to make that decision. So that's something that obviously is going to have to be sorted out and weighed by the council.
But
By
the
the time-
developer purchased it, you know, knowing that that condition was already made, so.
yeah, so what I would maybe suggest, unless we do nothing, Mike, would be to just say that, you know, we were asked by someone in support, and we just speak generally that we prefer as a group something, but we're not going to give any, we're not going to get behind any specific project with regards to this. I mean, I'm trying to figure, if we do put something together, we just keep it general.
But
What if-
again, yeah, like, we just have to figure out if the group's in favor of putting anything together or
Yeah.
putting nothing.
For sure.
What if we said, if we all agree, that the trust prefers an on-site unit in any project, but is not opposed to a payment in lieu?
You mean the other way around?
Yeah, which,
Yeah, that's,
just to show that we feel it's important for the unit to be within the project from forever. That's what inclusionary zoning is all about. But we're not opposed to accepting a payment in lieu. I mean, it's not our decision whether we accept it or not. The city council is going to be the one that makes a decision, and we get the money or there's a unit.
So do you think we stand back and wait for the city council to ask us, even if they were going to ask us, and just not have a comment, or what are your thoughts?
So Greg,
I kind of like that idea.
when is this on the city council agenda? or it'll go to P and D first, correct?
Yeah, I don't think it's even been filed yet.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure, but I think the applicant was thinking to hear us out first, see what our thoughts were.
Yes, I think that they were looking to approach the city council with the backing of our support. And
Oh, yeah, clearly.
Yep.
so I don't think we need, I mean, I personally don't think we need to make any kind of statement.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
agree.
Greg brings up a very good point, was that we don't have to do anything, but it's a good conversation that we're having in the event the city council asks for our input.
Mhm.
All right, so are we sort of agreed? No response for now?
Someone make a motion and we'll, let's vote.
Do we have a motion?
No, I
You
move
don't,
we.
you don't even have to make one.
No,
Yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
okay.
You
Because we
can
don't
just,
have, we're not acting.
right.
React.
Okay. Good discussion. So at this point, we're gonna hold off on the attorney's request until if the time comes that the city council asks us for input. We in agreement on that?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
So just a process question, Mike, to Greg, is that once that goes to the city council, it'll get referred to P and D. So if it were on the, I'm off in my head about when the next city council meeting is. It's next Tuesday, correct? Not tomorrow.
I think you're correct.
Yeah, so then the applicant has enough time to file for next Tuesday. And then that'll be referred to P and D, which will be heard the week after. And then the week after that, it comes back to city council. So there's a stretch of time here for us all to be thinking about how we would respond, and I can't.
And I would say it's probably even a longer lead time to the actual public hearing, because it typically doesn't come out of P and D and then go immediately to the agenda, because they would have had to kind of advance notice it. So it's probably the second, I would say that probably the earliest it would be is probably the second meeting in April.
And this is a good conversation that we had today, because this is a conversation, this is a request that may happen in the future. I just wanted to make the point that it's been a whole lot of time since anyone gave the trust any money.
You make it sound like a gift.
It's not a gift, but
But we have been looking for ways to generate income, and this would be a way to generate income.
well, and I just want to add, we're also looking at ways to create and build housing, and this is actually built. It's like sitting on the ground, you know, and it was permitted to be in this way, to be like deeded affordable housing, and it's there now. I drive by it every day.
and
So-
Deanne, I really appreciate that you brought that up.
Yes, me too.
I wouldn't have supported 8 units at that property without the condition of the affordable unit. So it feels like a total renege on the developer's end, whether or not, you know, they were from there in the beginning or not, so.
Can I just ask a quick question? Because, and pardon my ignorance, when we're talking about this additional affordable unit at this site, it's for sale, correct?
Hmm.
And what are we talking about when we say an affordable unit for sale? What's that dollar amount? I'm assuming it's set at some AMI level and it's backed into a number, but what is that number? Anyone know?
I don't
It
know.
really depends on the number of bedrooms. I would say, you know, roughly the affordable units that we've seen, you know, at like a 3-bedroom level would probably max out around 325, but that gets recalculated based on the economic conditions at the time of sale.
How about a 2-bedroom, Greg? Do you have any idea what that might be?
I don't know offhand. Again, it takes into consideration, you know, the income level and also the housing expense at the time. So
Gotcha. Okay.
Interest rates have a factor on it. Comparative comp sales have a factor on it. So there's a lot that goes into the development of that number.
But a percentage, or if all equal, a percentage of a 3-bedroom, is it 90%, would you say, or 80%, if you were to guess?
Again, it's almost like it's unique each time they calculate, but I would
Okay.
say it's probably, for in our region, things can range anywhere from high 2s to low 3s.
Okay.
We're talking about a steep discount to market, a significant one.
Yep.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Sorry
Yep.
to interject myself there, but I needed to know.
I'm
Thank
pretty
you.
sure, I think if I froze up and had to log off, so I assume Joe's asking about the math part of this, on East Main Street.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, I think the ones at the old Twin Light Manor were not high 2s, I believe.
Well, let's say the ones that are on the corner of Witham and
Thatcher.
Thatcher, I want to say they were high 2s.
Yeah. So,
So a family of 4 or 5, double income could get in there for
Yep.
$300,000. And there's multiple programs that could offer down payment assistance. There's mass housing, there's FHA, there's all that good stuff that at the end of the day, their mortgage payment probably wouldn't be that different than what they'd be paying at the Hallward or some other single family house in Gloucester. So that, like I said, that makes me
enough.
feel better about not taking a payment in lieu of, because I'm a fan of the payment in lieu of, because we could spread it across multiple projects and not just one. But the upside of creating one affordable unit is an actual family gets that pride of ownership and that ownership opportunity, which I think is great.
for sure. So, all right, so at this point,
You're freezing up, Mike.
we're gonna wait. How about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
What a pain in the neck. I'm on an iPad this time because my laptop's in a different place, so my apologies. So next up on the list, if we are all good with the decision to do nothing at this point, in the event we hear from the city council for our opinion, we'll make it known at that time. How's that?
fine.
We in agreement on that?
Yep.
Next up, I just wanted to, David can talk about this if he'd like. He was kind enough to put like a statement of interest together. It's almost to determine our eligibility for the CPC funds as part of our strategic plan. We were going to try to work with CPC to get a steady income source on an annual basis. In our strategic plan, we decided that 10% of CPC funds would be directed to us, and we would start the ball rolling on that. Included in my, I think I shared with you David's David's statement to the CPC. I got a follow-up question from Matt Lundberg. He was asking me about the 10% allocation, and I said, yes, indeed, it was 10% of the CPA funds annually. That's all I heard from him. He was fine. He was fine. He didn't have any follow-up questions. David, do you want to add anything to this?
No, you covered it well. Just that, as you said, it was a letter of eligibility. So we'll see where it goes from here. The full application is not due till later this spring.
Yeah.
So.
So that ball has started rolling. Anybody have any questions?
Just to thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Yeah, it was the first step in the strategic plan. So
Yeah.
moving.
Joe, you're a very kind person. Thank you for thanking him.
Yeah.
I only play one on Zoom.
Okay. Next up, Chris, this happened, this started, I think it was back in July or August. I was not
Yes.
at I was not at the meeting that day.
Yeah,
But I would like to just ask Chris to quickly review his proposed
Yeah.
changes to the housing contribution payments and if and how we want to approach this. So Chris, I'll let you have the floor.
okay, thank you. So we had discussed this from July through September, and I proposed two changes, one in one section, 5.11.4 and 5.11.5. And we just settled in and voted on, I think in September, to just go with the changes. And I tried to make them a little clearer in my email over the weekend, basically stating the same thing, but at least letting myself understand it better after reading it through. The 5.11.5, just changing the housing contribution payments in lieu of on-site units. Basically, putting them into a sliding scale from 6 to 9 units. And if you have the chart in front of you, you'll see it. And I think that it's, you want to encourage people at the lower amount of units to do it. And I think to do 6 units instead of bending and doing 5. I think that I think that having somebody that's doing 6 units, having to have one of those contributed, the contributions for that should be a little bit different than someone who's doing 9 units, for the potential, obviously, profit, being able to make it a little bit more equitable for the amount of units. So I
For the
just,
smaller project, right?
for smaller
basically-
project, it becomes one whole unit, one whole unit sale. It becomes much larger percentage of the profit at 6 units than it does at 9, and just having a sliding scale, I think will encourage people to do 6 and not stop at 5. So that's,
It certainly
that's-
makes sense. I would ask Greg, or even you, Chris, because you may have been part of these meetings. When this was proposed, the 6 to 9 units, was a sliding scale ever discussed?
this was done a very long time ago. You mean, you're not talking about last summer's discussion? You're talking
Yes.
about when it was written, the
No,
inclusionary.
last summer.
Oh, yeah, what you had in the sort of rough copy that's in yellow, that was the one that I brought forward in July. And finalized that one, I believe, in August.
And
When
how long
this
is
was, when this was amended a few years ago,
Yeah,
there was a lot of discussion about the potential in lieu payment. If you remember the old ordinance before its current form, an applicant had to demonstrate an economic hardship in order to request an in lieu payment. And the in lieu payment at the time was also not well defined, but it was really more of a delta between affordable and market. So to Mary John's point, it was not making a contribution that would potentially result in being able to build a unit. So I think it was flawed to begin with. The whole idea of economic hardship and how you would determine that. We went through a lot of discussion of that with the Halyard project, and it was actually determined that it was not an economic hardship, and that's primarily how we ended up with the 30 units in the Fuller project, or the Halyard project. So in discussion of different models and looking at how other ordinances operate, trying to make it clear by policy, which is kind of similar to what we discussed earlier this evening, in terms of when it's appropriate potentially to take an in lieu payment with an act of trust, with a trust that has resources, and programs, you might be able to leverage that funding and create more affordable units than potentially as one gets developed in a project. But a lot of discussion about what that threshold should be of when a larger project should be able to absorb it, and also provide more units. 9 was selected as the magic number. And then there was a lot of discussion about, what that payment could look like. The beginning discussion was a flat number that came from another ordinance of $160,000. And there was a big push from the planning board members to say, again, what does that get you versus the bird in the hand if you require the unit to be built? As Deanna pointed out, the unit is built, it's there, and we start adding to the affordable housing stock. And if somebody wanted to elect to not make a payment, there were very strong opinions that it should be at a cost. It should be comparable with an amount of money that allows the trust to be able to do something with. And that's where the kind of basing it on the Gloucester market and taking the average over 3 years, just in the event that there's a big dip, that we don't lose potential value, but also to track what's going on, particularly in the community. So that's where that calculation came from. I will be able to go to the videotape, and actually I was the one that was raising whether or not it should be scaled. But it was both the city council and the planning board that said we're going to keep it at that level of calculation applicable to 6 to 9 units. So that's where we arrived.
And when it was amended 3 or 4 years ago, wasn't it at 11 units before that?
It went from 11 down to 8 and then down to 6. So it was already at 8 units, which is the reason why the other project you were discussing earlier was required to have 1 unit project.
Yeah.
So there's the history.
Got it. Wow. Boy. I feel like I
and
was
so-
in the room.
And also a lot has changed in the market since then. I mean, who would have thought that condos in East Gloucester would be selling in the 950s off of East Main Street, not on the water side? I mean, it's so there's a lot bigger potential for profit. Obviously, if you've got to bring a unit onto the market for $465 and they're selling them for $965. So there's there's a large percentage that's there's a lot of in lieu money that can be found.
So what are the cons to a sliding scale? Do we have any? Does anyone not agree with a sliding scale that Chris has proposed?
I definitely agree with it. I think it's a really good idea.
I think it just includes more. I think that person will work to create 5 units. Now they might think twice about just slimming it down to create 5 units. Because it makes it more affordable
Yeah.
to the developer. Because let's face it, the building supplies have skyrocketed as well. So it's not as easy to develop anymore.
I just have a sort of a follow-up question for Greg, I think, or maybe Chris can answer this. I'm curious, what other built-in incentives to the inclusionary zoning ordinance are there for developers? So if are we just adding on more incentives for them by doing the sliding scale? Like what already is built in there? Is there like any kind of density bonuses or fee deferrals of any kind, or tax abatements? I don't know if there's anything else that's already, I don't know that much about it. If there's anything else built into the ordinance that is an incentive for them.
I think the only, it's just a requirement. I don't think this really moves in the direction of trying necessarily to encourage more units. The only incentive that was determined at the time, again, planning board and city council, to try to meet our local need is fewer units if deeper affordability is provided. So that's kind of a little bit of a different spin. less units, but at a deeper affordability. So that's incentivizing, trying to create, you know, a unit that would actually kind of comport with the local demand in terms of income levels. But beyond that, it's more of a, this, you know, kind of matter of fact, this is the requirement. This is what we want to see in projects to help meet local need.
So is it worth exploring if there aren't any other built-in incentives for the developers? Is it worth exploring, you know, something else other than the sliding scale that might be something welcomed by developers and would maximize our end dollar amounts?
I really appreciate you saying that, Deanna, because I think the missing piece to some of these conversations in the last 10 years or so has been, and not including builders. You know, we have to depend on the builders actually finding the pockets to start a construction project and play it out till the end, until people either rent them or buy them. So I like the idea of all of us understanding that, and the word incentives is huge, like the incentives that we're providing to builders so that they build something rather than avoid any inclusionary by building fewer units than they probably could have. So
Yeah.
I'm, it's not that I don't understand what this is, Chris, but the sliding scale, I would just like you to explain it from a builder's perspective. How does the builder looking at this, how does it make it easier for them to include more affordable units?
Well, I think you can start, depending on the way that the sales are with your condos all around the shoreline and now inland at the big prices that you see. You're going to want to try to encourage them to build between 6 and 9 units and not stop at 4 or 5 and do mansions. You don't want that.
Yep.
Builders don't like looking at something and saying, okay, I'm going to build that 6th unit and I'm going to take 400,000 out of my pocket, and I'm just not going to do it. You know, you don't want to look at having it comes time to do one of the condos or houses or whatever, you know, co-op, whatever it is. You want to motivate them to build what they can meet by zoning with regards to land and area, and you want to keep the risk down. And if you know that one of your units out of 6 is going to be is going to have to be affordable, they're just not going to do it. They're going to find something else to do. They're going to make the other ones bigger and more gracious, and they're going to not build it, and they're just going to cater to something that's on the much higher end.
Yeah, understood.
I mean, that's what you're getting with that's what you get with duplexes now. It's that are condoing and selling for huge money. I think that it's you want to motivate. You want to see something that looks builder friendly. You know what I mean? You want to do something, and I think if something doesn't look fair, if someone looks and says 9 units, you need 1, 6 units, 1, it just doesn't. Greg mentioned it somehow hits you a little bit wrong, that there should be a sliding scale, and it should be simple to understand. And I think the updating that they did a few years ago, trying to understand something, some of us builders like myself aren't that sophisticated, and they just want to look at numbers and say, okay, I can do. Am I going to risk that? No, I'm not going to risk that. A lot of times it's not super high finance. It's looking at something and saying, that's not right. That's not okay. I think I can do it. Let's make it work. I think that making it fair, making it easy to understand, knowing what you're up against, reduce the risk to take on a project.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And I just think of a sliding scale when they were doing, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago when they're doing it, I thought that would be very helpful to bring people in to doing more than just 4 or 5 units when they can.
Right.
And And I think it's just showing that you're looking to do, and it shows you're looking to do projects. If it gets passed by the city council, you're looking to have for people to get in and do, and do, do a 6, you want people to do the 6 units, and you want them to be proud that they, something is, if the unit sale is 465 and they're selling for 865, that they're coming up with, $240,000, $250,000 that they're going to contribute to the housing trust fund. You want to be able to be part of not just building housing, but being able to say, well, I did 6 units and, I put off over $200,000 into the housing, affordable housing trust. And this is going to help a lot of other people. You want to make it happen. And I think discouraging people, you'll never know the ones that weren't going to be built because they're not going to get built.
Right. Greg, we have, there's a raised hand from an attendee, Sonny Robinson. How do we?
If you want to let her speak, I can allow her to speak.
Yeah, she has a raised hand.
Okay.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you for the opportunity. This is Sonny Robinson. I live at 20 Harvard Street. I am a big advocate for affordable housing in Gloucester. I actually raised my hand when you were having the discussion on whether or not you should consider a payment in lieu of for the East Main Street property. I must say, I am very glad to see that you decided to do nothing. What I would have urged you to do was write the developer a letter more in line with the kind of reminder that Deanna was giving us, that in fact they got permitted for 8 units precisely because they promised to actually build a unit, and that's the way things that should go forward. The second comment I would make sort of overlaps both of the things you're talking about today, and that is that it's a complicated thing. I completely agree in terms of how we foster and incentivize developing the affordable units that we need, because we need far more than we're getting, regardless of which end of the inclusionary zoning we work with. But I would urge you not to express any preference whether the units are do payment in lieu of to replace the being built. I think you want to, I, as a citizen watching you, want to see you do everything you can to foster the units getting built. And since the ordinance already has the option built into it, I would urge you not to do anything that would undercut urging the units to get built. And my third comment and final comment then would be, while you're considering this percentage issue, it is certainly a dilemma whether or not a lower percentage for 6 units rather than the full unit would be a incentive or not. It certainly would generate additional funds that the Affordable Housing Trust could deploy. But on the other hand, I would urge you again, as a citizen in the community, to keep yourselves focused on how you get the units built. We do certainly need to sustain what we have, but please do not lose track of your principal objective. Thank you for the opportunity to make a comment.
Thank you very much, Sonny. I think all of us on the trust know the mission, and we're going to continue to support the mission of the Affordable Housing Trust. Any other comments?
Nope, that's it. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, thank you very much. Any comments from the trust?
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't comfortable with the sliding scale, sort of reducing the potential revenue for the Affordable Housing Trust when we first had this conversation. And it's making me just sort of rethinking about it, you know, in this time in between. And now that I know that there aren't really any other incentives that are built into the inclusionary zoning ordinance, you know, perhaps there's something else that the city could offer developers instead of the sliding scale that might satisfy a builder's interest to build stuff, but also not reduce, you know, the potential revenue for a payment in lieu for the housing trust. So I think at least exploring that would be helpful for me to know if there's anything else that we could do instead of that.
As a builder developer, Deanna, I don't think there's anything out there.
I mean, is increasing density, I mean, are there any other, you know, things that might impact a project being built that could?
No, I just, and again, some builders they wouldn't even go through the process of doing the 6th unit. They'll just forget it. They just won't do it. So you have one less unit, you have nothing in your trust. So I think I look at it simply is that, you know, 100% of 0 is 0. So if they don't do it, you don't get anything. You don't get the house. You get less than 0. You don't get housing. You don't get it.
I get it.
And you feed the market. We're just going to continue to feed the market on the upper end in Gloucester. And if that's, you know, we want to incentivize them. And you haven't seen a lot of smaller projects coming through because they're difficult to do. They're risk taking. They get turned out. You want to incentivize people to do projects.
Well, I hear
Well, could I make a suggestion that, you know, we've got Chris's proposal in front of us, instead of talking about what else might be done, can't we act on what we have instead of, I mean, and then you can bring up, if you have an idea, you know, you could research it and bring it to the trust. But right now, aren't we supposed to be considering this proposal and not whether or not other proposals exist out there in the ether somewhere? I mean, other ideas.
Craig, what would be the process? Would we refer this to the planning board or something?
So you really don't have a direct avenue to the planning board for just kind of an informal review. Recently, there was an example of someone forwarding it to the city council, and they can decide to refer it to the planning board to be explored. But it's kind of unusual for anybody to just say, hey, I want to be on your agenda. So I mean, that would probably, ultimately the city council is the one that would have to approve a zoning change. So that might make sense if you wanted to forward that to the city council for their consideration.
And the state law is pretty specific about how zoning laws are enacted as well. So it can't just be the trust kind of proposing something and then it happens. We can go over that more if this has legs or if you want us to. But just a heads up, it would be difficult for you to go from here directly to a zoning change. You really want to think about that, maybe Chris specifically, about where he wants it to go. But just a heads up, eyes wide open kind of thing.
Is it something that, so proposing it to the city council is not the right route to go, or is that?
You'd need a council sponsor likely to bring it forward. Okay. They can propose zoning, or it can be a citizen's petition or a property owner, but in this case, there's no property. It's just a zoning change for a policy.
Okay, we can talk about that later for sure. The best way, if the trust thinks it's something that we should move forward on. Thank you. And Deanna, I can talk to you later about some other changes.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because I have some other thoughts that might be helpful as well.
Because I guess my only other thought on this whole subject is that if it's the 6 units, why don't we just change it to the 7 to 9 and eliminate it for the 6 and not do the sliding scale? Or if we're just, this is really all about the sliding scale, then that's different, but that's not kind of what I'm hearing. And so my gut feeling is that our mission is to create and, support affordable housing. And if we're scaling down on our potential revenue stream, by doing a sliding scale. I don't know that we're helping
But
ourselves.
so I think you gotta find a balance between, I think if we were doing a lot of 6 units, then we leave it alone, but we're not.
Right,
So
that's,
I think.
Yeah, there's a disincentive, Deanna. That's what Chris is trying to eliminate.
yes.
But where's the distance, like, where does that start? He keeps referring to
If-
6 units, so maybe,
Yeah,
you know,
I,
you're
So
I
if you
think
look
it's
at-
gonna start, if you switch it to 7 units, it's gonna start at 7
gonna
units.
start at 7, so it's always gonna be there, is
Yeah.
in other words, but
But I think if you look at one whole unit as a percentage of your profit might be 18, 19%. With and if you look at something with 9 units, it might end up being 12% of your profit. So people, they're gonna calculate the risk, they're gonna say, I'm not gonna take this on. I'm, just looking at the way that the zoning is written, it's the same for 9 as it is for 6. And there's,
So
it's
they
just-
do
it's-
not, they would do 9 or nothing because it doesn't make any sense for them to put all that work in and get so little back for it.
Yeah,
This is
and
what we're trying to eliminate.
Exactly.
Correct.
okay, I understand what you're saying.
And you want to make them feel that and you want them to do it. You want them to contribute. You want them to contribute. You want developers to contribute to the fund as well, because then they feel ownership more to the city. You'll get a lot more of your local guys versus big people. I mean, you want to get the local guys doing stuff and not, this isn't really what I do, but it's something that I know that talking with the other builder developers that I'm friendly with is that, they don't even want to talk zoning because they don't think anything's going to be favorable or helpful to them to do stuff. That's just the way they feel. And I think making little steps and seeing that, if I do 6 units, I don't have to pay that full amount. I have to pay 60% of the, let me take a look at that. And the risk goes down and the benefits are a lot better, I think.
So I just want to say, I hear all of this and I understand it. And I really appreciate everything that you're trying to explain to me, Chris. I really do. And all of the work and energy that you're putting into this thought
Yeah.
process. I'm not going to support the sliding scale. I feel like it's counter to what we're trying to achieve. And
We're trying to, I have no problem with that, but we're trying to achieve units.
I know,
affordable.
I hear you. So on
That's our
principle,
goal.
I'm just saying, this is, I just can't,
Not a problem.
yeah. I mean, if it's the ordinance and there's no other option, then they're gonna build. I mean,
They'll
unless,
build- Yeah,
Well,
but they'll
they
build
might
less.
build, but they'll
No,
build-
they're
I-
not. That's the point.
They're gonna
They're
build
not.
less.
they'll
Yeah.
build 4 units or 5 units or 3 units.
Yeah.
I mean, can somebody say that there's more 5-unit construction being built right now? I mean, is there, like, nobody's brought any of that data to this conversation to say,
Well, Chris has said it anecdotally that people are not building the 6s.
yeah, but I mean, how about permit wise, like application wise, is there,
It's very tough. It's very risky to do something like that. You've got to have the land, the square footage, utilities. You've got to have a lot of that. And what people are doing is they're just looking at what you see on the back shore, $1 million. That's the smaller ones in the nice locations. You're going to get the mansions. When you eliminate, I have no problem with you if you're
yeah,
not
and
in favor.
I don't need to have,
And even if you want to, even after this evening, want to have a discussion on
Yeah.
it, we could drink some coffee somewhere and I can tell you, just, show you different project people that didn't want to do it because, they didn't want to make a last unit. They wanted to just
Right.
do another number or
but this is,
put big.
this is really just about proposing a change. So, whether I'm behind it or not, it doesn't really matter. So,
Yeah, no, I understand. No problem.
okay, all right.
There's some
Yeah.
information online that between now and our next meeting that I can pull together, where I think it's the state of the cities by HUD or the government, that they track by jurisdiction how many housing permits are pulled for construction, and they do delineate between number of units in each permit housing. So I can do something like that just to add some data to it. 'Cause
That'd
I
be great.
understand what you're saying, Deanna, but I also agree with Chris in the sense of I'd rather see some incentives to get people to build more, but I 100% understand to see numbers behind it.
Mhm.
Joe, I don't
Any
want
other-
to send you on a little bit of a wild goose chase, but a lot of those resources are not very accurate.
Yeah,
We have looked at everything that's been permitted in the last 5 years. So I can try to provide a summary of that by your next meeting.
Fantastic.
And then since I
That'd be great.
use that in my work, I'm going to compare it to what you give me, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reporting lag. You know, if you look at the last 5 years and some of those resources, it looks like we've built nothing, which is not the case. So I can provide some of that information.
and Greg, would you be able to sort of speak in generalities how the multifamily zoning has changed in the last 10 years? I know that they've moved some of the requirements from one board to another and between 3, 4, 5, and 6 units. How do they generally stand from a permit standpoint?
So 3 units are approved by the zoning board of appeals, and then anything greater than that is still with the city council.
Gotcha. Got it. Do you find that in other communities? Is that the way that the other communities do it, or is there?
There's a lot of communities that don't permit multifamily housing.
Okay, I got it.
But no, it's, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's always typical for, you know, a mayor, city council form of government to have the city council as a special permit granting authority. Oftentimes typically consolidated with the planning board.
Gotcha, okay.
Sometimes zoning board, they're more regular, you know, permit granting authorities, whereas the council's more legislative. But that's not the case.
Is that something that you guys have tried to look into to make it, to look at doing that? Not that it's, want to take that away from city council, but is that something that you guys have ever considered or not?
Yeah, there's been some discussion of some permits being with the planning board. There's a number that were initially drafted as planning board and ended up city council.
Got it, okay.
They
Okay,
get to decide.
That was more curious. I
Yeah.
just wanted to gain.
No, it was part of the housing production plan discussion as well in terms of how things are permitted. You know, that was one of the reasons for the 3-family going from city council to zoning board, because oftentimes
okay,
there was
gotcha.
another relief that may have been needed to be requested, setback
Yeah.
or something like that. And it would consolidate that review to one permit granting authority rather than having to go through multiple.
Gotcha. And so one other, I think I might have a quick discussion with you at some point, and I'm getting a little off subject. But with regards to having multiple Form As next to each other developed at the same time, I know that there was an issue of people sort of skirting being able to do keeping, how does it generally work with multiple lots beside them, each other, with regards to falling into inclusionary housing once they hit the 6-unit mark?
So it is what the yield of it is. So if there's a 3-lot A&R and somebody was going to build 2-family, it would be required.
And I know there's a timeline. Is that something that can be net sort of, you know, there was a 36-month timeline with regards to developing additional property. Is that something that can still be brought into the affordable, or how do you generally look at that? How is it written and how can we deal with that going forward?
It's just the language of what's in the ordinance right now. So it is attempting to try to avoid segmentation so that somebody can't just delay and not have to pay the contribution.
But after
there a-
36 months, they can, right?
I'd have to go back and look at the current, I think that was language from the old ordinance.
Okay, yeah, I just think that's something that could be tightened up. I know there was one in East Gloucester that sort of snuck through. And I just, yeah, just so it's clear, I think. Sorry to get off subject.
Did you go down a rabbit hole, Chris?
Yes, I did. I can't help it. I wake up thinking about little stupid things.
So I think,
It's
I
a
think for the
disease.
most, I think for the most part, with the exception of Deanna, I think most of us are in favor of supporting a sliding scale. I'm still confused at where this went on what our role is in proposing a sliding scale and how it gets to the next step. So that's where I'm a little foggy still, is how it gets from us supporting it to the council, to the planning board.
Well, I think we just get, we vote on whether to support it. And then I think from there, we'll find the route, whether it's through a city councilor or through the planning board, but at least we vote. You know, if it's gonna go, we've just got to vote to say that we're in favor of it. And, you know, what can we do after that, you know?
So is this, so is it your proposal that you have in front of us tonight? Can we accept this as a motion? Are you making a motion that we look to
Change
propose
one.
this sliding scale to the inclusionary zoning payment in lieu requirement?
Yeah, 5.11.5, yes.
Yep. Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
May I suggest that we table this till the next meeting, only to give Greg time to bring back to us to understand how exactly this would happen?
How
Because
it would happen? Wait a minute. That's not what,
I-
is that what you're bringing back, Greg? I thought it was data.
the motion is to accept what Chris sent us, which sounds
Yeah.
like most of us are in agreement with, but the process of getting it actually
I-
into the zoning ordinance is something else entirely.
No, I think we can put that as part of the motion, is that we can
Yeah.
say, bring it through the city council through whatever means that are proper per state law.
Yeah, right
It's
now,
got-
we're just supporting it. That's all.
Yep.
It's a statement of support.
Mike, I think to cover what I think Ruth is saying is to be able, in the part of the motion, is to forward it through. It's got to ultimately go to the city council and then refer it out. So to go through whatever means necessary legally to go to the city of Gloucester.
Yes, because if we believe in it, just supporting it doesn't make it happen.
Well, don't we start somewhere, though? I mean, do we have
No,
to
that's
do
not-
everything all in one bite?
No, I think we can do it. I think we can do it included in the motion. I just don't know how to say it.
I
Mike, go ahead.
agree. So Chris, I'm going to assume you're making a motion that
Yes.
we support this sliding scale and present it to the city council following proper channels
Yeah,
Okay.
to move it to the next level.
to move it to city council through whatever's required by state law to potentially change the zoning bylaw 5.11.5.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
is there,
Heather?
Aye.
Aye.
You still, okay. You still have to do a roll call vote.
Okay,
Oh, right.
Sorry.
Heather, Daigle. Okay, we'll go to Ruth.
Sorry,
Pino.
I'm muted. Hi,
No,
sorry.
Ruth Pino,
yes,
Deanna Fay,
Can I just abstain instead of a no vote?
yes, you can.
Okay, then I'll,
okay. Chris made the motion, Ruth seconded it. Joe Bertolino,
Yes.
Mike Lester, yes. Is that everybody?
MJ, yes.
MJ, sorry about that. Any additional discussion?
For the
No,
record,
we
I'd
just
be I'd be
voted.
a
We
no.
can't discuss. We voted already. That ends it.
Dave, I'm sorry, what'd you say, Dave?
I just said for the record, I'd be a no, but for what it's worth.
David, a voting member? Do we need
Yes.
to record that as a no?
you have to record it as a no if he's a voting member, yes.
Okay. All right. So Chris, appears that the ayes have it.
Yeah.
and we'll follow up a discussion on the proper channels.
And I'd almost, if I could, I'd like to know why Dave wouldn't be in favor of it. He hasn't voiced much. I just would like to know why, because it's got to go through his office and I wouldn't,
It doesn't go through my office, it goes right to the council. That, I guess that's where I'm kind of held up. I tried to say before, I don't really know where you're going with it overall. I guess to Deanna's point, I'd kind of like to know more based on this conversation before voting positively. But additionally, as Ruth mentioned too, it's, we can't, Greg and I can't do anything with the ordinance as it is. So it would be good to figure that out of what you want to do, but that's okay. I mean, I'm not necessarily in favor. I'd rather, I mean, we just had a development on earlier that was willing to pay, that was in this range. So I think it hasn't really been tested yet. We're modifying something that's really new. That's my only hesitation. And it'd be nice to not, come back and modify the ordinance again in a couple of years. It's just kind of tricky, but.
We should have a offline conversation about.
gotcha,
zoning
okay. I just-
General.
Got it.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your input there, Dave.
Next up on the agenda, election of treasurer. Years ago, George Sibley nominated me as the banker, as treasurer of the Affordable Housing Trust. I would work with the treasurer's office, get a statement every few months and report on the balance. Now that we are better funded, I think it's important to have someone stay on top of this. So I would like to see someone take on the role of treasurer to follow up with the treasurer's department, stay on top of the bank statements and report every meeting on certain things.
Yeah. I won't do that, but I just, I think my iPad is gonna die on me and I don't have a cord.
All right.
Hold on.
So,
Can I nominate Joe Bertolino?
How does Joe feel about that?
I think you just did.
Did he throw up? Did he
No,
throw-
no, I am very flattered. I would respectfully say no, just at this time. I have a lot of things going on and I wouldn't want to, pardon my French, but half-ass anything. But if no one else wants to do it, I'm here to do it. So
I think
thank you.
I think it's you, Joe.
That's it. That's it. I'm in good company with Mike. Mike, you can teach me everything I need to know.
me?
Very much.
Thank
So
you,
what do
Joe.
we?
Happy to do it, guys. Thank you.
I moved to-
Oh, but wait a minute, we should do this formally, right, Don? I think
Okay, so
Deanna made the
Deanna
motion,
Do
and
I-
I'll second.
Do I get down
I'll
on
second.
one knee and you guys get a sword
Yeah,
and go
sword.
across? Yes.
So
Got a crown.
Deanna,
Deanna
I
made a
saw-
motion, and
I-
I'll
Deanna
second.
made a
I
motion. We have a
second-
Okay,
second.
Deanna. Okay,
So-
MJ
So
seconds it.
now do we have any further discussion on Joe Bertolino becoming the treasurer to replace me?
I move the question.
Any,
Let's vote.
Me too.
all
We have to-
in favor? Heather Daigle,
Sorry, I have kids and dogs. I,
Ruth Pino,
Yes,
MJ,
Yes,
Deanna Fay,
With gratitude, yes.
Chris McCarthy,
Yes.
and Mike Lester's a yes. David Fields,
Yes.
now that I know you're a voting member, thank you. Yes. All right.
I for some reason, I feel like I'm a punchline right now, but we'll find
Oh,
out.
honey, That's, at least you weren't nominated for chair. Remember those?
You know
old
what?
Three Stoo-
Thank God for small blessings. I am happy
Yeah.
about that.
Remember the old Three Stooges episodes when the Foreign Legion, when they would ask for people to step up, everyone else would step back, and there was Mo, Larry, and Curly sitting in the front. That was me when everyone nominated me to be chair here. So I thought that was excellent discussion tonight. Is there anything else, any other business before we
Just-
adjourn?
A little bit of housekeeping on the city's website, Mike. you're MIA. So hopefully they can get you on there. On the
What does that
Affordable
mean?
Trust.
What-
Missing,
You're not listed.
I'm not.
They kicked you out.
That's terrific. That's terrific.
So hopefully they can get you back on there.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
No problem.
We'll see if we can get that bit of housekeeping taken care of.
Can I
Any
just
other business?
confirm, I just want to confirm that our next meeting is April 24th? Does that feel right? Is that
oh,
right?
good point, let's do that.
The grass will be turning green. The buds will be in the trees.
It
Yes,
would be the 17th, right? The third
I thought-
Monday?
Okay, so, yeah, I just looked quickly, so the 17th then. is-
17th.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
good night, everyone.
Good night, nice to see you all.
Well, we
Well, I'd
have
make a
to-
motion to adjourn.
Oh, right.
Second,
All in favor?
all right.
Aye.
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 Do we have to roll
Yes.
call that?
Thank you very
We-
much, Greg and David. Have a good
Yes,
evening,
thank you.
everyone.
Bye,
You
guys.
too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.